Welcome to the first episode in a Legendarium series about the Roman kingdom. In Part 1, Sons of the War God, we will talk about Rome's founding myth, the story of Romulus and Remus. During the reign of Augustus Caesar, one of the emperor's personal acquaintances, Titus Livius, known to us as Livy, began a monumental history of Rome. He would title it Ab Urbe Condita, or From the Founding of the City. As moralists have throughout the ages, Livy looked upon his own time with despair. He saw little except backbiting, intrigue, and the thoughtless pursuit of pleasure. Indeed, he wrote, "The powers of this overgrown state have long been employed in working their own destruction." In the hope of inspiring himself and others, he set out to study Rome's past in the hopes of restoring some lost moral fiber to his countrymen. Instead, his study of the past revealed a catalogue of cruelty written in blood, which dated back to Rome's founders, Romulus and Remus. By Livy's time, Roman poets made Romulus and Remus a better pedigree. They made them the direct descendants of Aeneas, whose fate-driven adventures to discover Italy are described by Virgil in the Aeneid. This epic poem, also written during Augustus's reign, linked Italic folk heroes to ancient Hellenic myth. Of course, it is not known for certain if Romulus and Remus existed, or if a real Italic chieftain or chieftains served as their role model. Yet the Romans unquestioningly believed in the reality of Romulus and Remus as historical figures, and the story has survived as a staple of European culture. However, Romulus and Remus's Italic roots are shown clearly in their mother's father, Numitor, a king of Alba Longa. This ancient city lay about 25 miles southeast of Rome, ruled by King Numitor, who had a daughter named Rhea Silvia. Before Romulus and Remus were conceived, Numitor's younger brother Amulius stole the throne from him. Amulius had inherited control over Alba Longa's treasury, which he used to become king. Yet Amulius, wishing to avoid further conflict, murdered Numitor's male heirs and forced Rhea Silvia to become a Vestal Virgin. Vestal Virgins served as priestesses of Vesta, the patron goddess of the hearth and home. These women kept a sacred fire that was never to be extinguished and took vows of chastity. By this simple machination, the usurper ensured that no new rivals to his throne would be born. Yet, they were born. Some accounts claimed that the god Mars entered the chamber of Rhea Silvia as a beam of sunlight and lay with her. Other myths attest that the hero Hercules partnered with her. Livy claims that Rhea Silvia lay with a mortal man, but she cleverly blamed her pregnancy on divine conception to save her children. In either case, the myth says that Rhea Silvia gave birth to twin sons. According to folklore, in her dreams, she had a vision where she dropped a hairpin to the ground, and from where it fell, two twin trees sprung up. One of the trees grew until it covered the entire world with its shade, foreshadowing the ultimate success of Romulus and his Roman Empire. However, custom dictated that any Vestal Virgin who betrayed her vows of chastity must be put to death by being buried alive. However, King Amulius, fearing the wrath of the paternal god, either Mars or Hercules, did not wish to murder them himself. So King Amulius imprisoned Rhea Silvia and ordered the twins' death by means of live burial, exposure, or being thrown into the Tiber River. He reasoned that if the twins died by the elements rather than the sword, he would be spared the god's anger. To this end, he ordered a servant to carry out the death sentence, and in every scenario of the myth, the servant took pity on the twins and placed them in a basket set on the river Tiber, a story that has parallels with the story of Moses in Egypt. The Tiber River's god, fittingly named Tibernus, then carried the boys to safety by calming the river. Indeed, the earliest Romans followed a totemic faith, which held that spirits and gods dwelled in all things, including stones, trees, and rivers. The Tiber River, swollen by rains, often flooded and transformed the hills near the western coast into islands. And during one such tempest, Tibernus caught the boy's basket in the roots of a fig tree near the base of the Palatine Hill in the Velabrum swamp. A she-wolf, or lupa in Latin, suckled them until the boys grew old enough to take food from a woodpecker. The image of the twins suckled by a she-wolf became one of the iconic images of ancient Rome. A shepherd and his wife, Faustulus and Acca Laurentia, came across them. Unafraid, the wolf stared at the astonished shepherds, who could not believe their eyes. After a time, the she-wolf loped off calmly and vanished inside a cave, arched over by a dense wood with a stream flowing from it. Taken in by Faustulus, the two boys grew up to be shepherds like their adoptive father. However, they also showed a striking aptitude for racing and throwing the javelin. Once they even waylaid a gang of bandits and divided their spoils amongst the poor. One day, while herding sheep, they met the royal shepherds of King Amulius near the Palatine Hill, a place sacred to shepherds. There, Italic youths ran around the hill unclothed, save for loincloths made from the skins of freshly sacrificed animals. As they did, they lashed bystanders with leather thongs in the belief that doing so would purify their flocks, and this tradition would survive into the late Republic and early Empire. Yet on this day, it became a scene of angry confrontation between Remus and the royal shepherds. The royal shepherds at first withdrew from Remus, but once they gathered in greater numbers, they ambushed Remus on the roadway and hurled stones and spears at Remus and his companions. After overpowering him, they brought Remus before their master, King Amulius. Romulus gathered a band of local shepherds to join him in rescuing his brother. King Amulius failed to recognize either Remus or Romulus, believing both to be dead. With this advantage, Romulus freed his brother and murdered King Amulius. But out of filial piety, the brothers rejected the citizens' offer of the crown of Alba Longa and reinstated Numitor as king. Curiously, the historian Dionysius of Halicarnassus doubted this legend 2,000 years ago. Instead, Dionysius argued that Numitor switched the twins with changelings in the fear that Numitor would have his twins killed. He then handed his real grandchildren to Faustulus and his wife, the latter being a woman of whose virtue known as a lupa or she-wolf. This episode is a reminder that skepticism was alive and well even 2,000 years ago. And while the story of Romulus and Remus may be legend, the Romans took it very seriously, and it may contain a few nuggets of historical truth. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.